My boss said I was too inexperienced to lead, so I started my own company and took all his clients. My name is Grace, and 5 years ago, I was a secret weapon at prestige marketing. That's what the clients called me, anyway. To my boss, Alan, I was more like a very efficient, idea-generating piece of furniture. Prestige marketing was exactly as stuffy as it sounds. The office had dark wood walls, carpet so thick you lost your footing, and a strict whisper-only policy. Alan, my boss, was a man who wore expensive suits and even more expensive cologne. He loved to use words like synergy and disruption, but couldn't design a simple birthday card. That was my job. Well, not birthday cards, but close. I was a senior creative. I designed the logos, wrote the catchy slogans, and most importantly, I was the one who actually talked to the clients. I listened. When they said they wanted something fresh, I knew they didn't mean a new font. They meant their sales were down and they were scared. I'll never forget the Innovate Tech meeting. Innovate Tech was our biggest client, a local tech company that was just about to go global. Alan, as usual, was leading the presentation. And so, Alan said, clicking to a slide that had nothing but the word future on it. We will leverage your core competencies to synergize a new paradigm of consumer engagement. The CEO of Innovate Tech, a sharp man named Ben, just sighed. Alan, that's the 4th time you've said synergy. What I want to know is, what's the actual idea? Alan chuckled, a horrible, dry sound. The idea, Ben, is the synergy. I saw Ben's eyes glaze over. We were about to lose the account. I felt a surge of panic, and before I could stop myself, I stood up. The room, which held about 10 people, went silent. Alan's head whipped around, his eyes narrowing. Actually, Ben, I said, my voice shaking only a little, I think what Alan is building towards is the bite-sized campaign we discussed. We know your new software is complex, so we don't sell the complexity, we sell the result. We're thinking a series of 15-second videos, super simple, superhuman. New software that gets you home for dinner. New software that gets you home for dinner. We stop selling the future and start selling today. I held my breath. Ben was quiet for a long moment. Then he broke into a huge grin. Bite-sized. I love it. Gets you home for dinner. That's it. That's the one. The rest of the meeting was a blur. Ben spoke directly to me, asking for more. Alan just stood by the projector, fuming with the fake smile plastered on his face. On the car ride back, I was buzzing. Alan was silent. Well, I think that went well, I said, trying to be cheerful. Alan turned to me, his smile gone. You were out of line, Grace. You don't interrupt me. It makes the company look disorganized. But we saved the account, I said, confused. You got lucky. A good idea doesn't make up for a lack of professionalism. Know your place. I shrank back into my seat. Know your place. That's all he saw me as. Someone in a place, not a person. I knew then I had to get out, or at least move up. A week later, the senior creative director position opened up. It was a big deal. It meant leading the whole creative team. It meant a corner office with a window. It meant most of all that I wouldn't be Alan's secret weapon anymore. I'd be my own. And I deserved it. For the last year, I'd basically been doing the job anyway, just without the pay or the title. I was the one who trained the new designers, the one who approved the final proofs, and the one who calmed down clients when Alan accidentally insulted them. I spent a whole weekend putting together a presentation. Not just a resume, but a full-on plan. A 90-day strategy to improve our workflow, a new system for client feedback, and a portfolio of all the accounts I had personally saved or grown in the last year. It was 30 pages long, and it was brilliant. I walked into Alan's dark, woody office on Monday morning, my presentation held tight. "Alan," I started, my voice clear. "I'd like to formally apply for the creative director position. I've prepared a few thoughts on my vision for the role." He held up a hand, stopping me. He didn't even look up from his computer. "Grace, I'll stop you right there." He finally swiveled in his massive leather chair. He looked at me with a look of pity. It was worse than anger. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, I really do. You're a great designer, a fantastic little idea generator." I bristled at the word little. "But," he continued, steepling his fingers, "but let's be realistic. The creative director is a leadership role. It's about presence. It's about gravitas." I don't understand," I said. "My ideas are easy," he said, cutting me off. "Execution is one thing, but leadership, that's another beast. And well, you're just too inexperienced." The word hung in the air heavy and suffocating. Inexperienced. Me. The one who saved the Innovate Tech account. The one who single-handedly designed the award-winning campaign for the local city zoo. The one who everyone on the team came to for help because Alan was always too busy. "Inexperienced?" I repeated, my voice hollow. "It's not a bad thing," he said, in a tone that clearly meant it was. "You just need more time. 5, maybe 10 more years. You need to, I don't know, get a few more battle scars. This is a job for a heavyweight." I was so stunned I couldn't even speak. "In fact," he said, turning back to his screen, a sign that the meeting was over, "I've already filled the position. Mark is starting on Monday." Mark? Mark? Mark! Mark was a guy from Alan's old company. He'd been with us for 6 months. His only good idea so far was suggesting we buy a more expensive coffee machine. He was a professional handshaker, a master of smiling and nodding, and he repeated the same 3 sports stories in every meeting.
He was, in a word, a younger, less polished Alan. "Mark?" I finally whispered. "That's right. He has that presence. He just gets it. You could probably learn a lot from him," Alan said, not looking up. "That's all." I stood there for a full 30 seconds. He didn't look up again. I walked out of his office, my 30-page presentation feeling like a ton of bricks in my hand. I walked past the empty corner office that should have been mine. I walked back to my desk, my place. I sat down. I looked at the zoo poster I'd designed. The tagline I wrote was, "Break out of your cage." I felt the anger, hot and sharp, rise in my throat. It wasn't just disappointment, it was offense. He hadn't just said no, he had said I wasn't capable, that my 5 years of hard work, my late nights, my winning ideas meant nothing. I was too inexperienced. That afternoon, I typed up my 2 weeks' notice, but I didn't hand it in. Not yet. First, I went to the bathroom and had a very quiet, very angry cry. Then I dried my eyes, went back to my desk, and opened a new browser tab. I Googled how to register a business name. Alan thought I was inexperienced. Fine. I'd show him what inexperienced could do. The next 2 weeks were the strangest of my life. I handed in my resignation the next day. Alan just shrugged.
Big mistake, Grace. It's a tough world out there. You'll be back. He was so sure of himself, it made my teeth ache. He announced Mark as the new creative director in a stuffy team meeting. Mark gave a speech that used the word teamwork 17 times, but said nothing of substance. He then joked that his first order of business was to get that new coffee machine. Everyone laughed weakly. While the office was buzzing about Mark, I was working. I'd go to my desk, do the bare minimum to hand over my projects, and spend the rest of the time planning my entire future. I worked through my lunch breaks, hiding in my car. I built a website. I designed my own logo. I needed a name, not Prestige or Apex or any of those other strong-sounding empty words. I thought back to the zoo poster, break out of your cage. I thought about being small but fast and smart. I named my company Sparrow Creative. I spent the evenings at home, not watching TV or relaxing, but on the phone. I was talking to lawyers, to accountants, to my terrified parents. "A company, Grace?" my dad had said, his voice full of worry. "You have such a good, stable job with benefits and a 401k. "I know, Dad," I said, pacing my tiny apartment kitchen. "But Alan, he said I was too inexperienced." "Well, he's not. I mean, you are only 27. I hung up, more determined than ever. My last day was a Friday. There was no party, no cake. Alan was too busy for an exit interview. Mark just gave me a sloppy handshake and said, "No hard feelings, right? May the best man win." I just stared at him. The best man, I thought. "Good luck, Mark," I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "You'll need it." I packed my few personal items into a cardboard box, a couple of design awards, a photo of my family, and a funny-looking coffee mug. As I walked out the door, the only person who said goodbye was Maria, the receptionist. "I'm going to miss you, Grace," she said, squeezing my hand. "You were the only one here with any real talent." "Thanks, Maria," I said, my throat suddenly thick. "Hey, here's my new card." I handed her a simple, elegant card I'd had printed at a 24-hour shop. It just said, Sparrow Creative, Grace Ramirez, founder, and chief idea. My new cell phone number. Maria's eyes went wide. "Founder? Good for you!" I walked out of the Prestige building, the automatic doors sliding shut behind me. I stepped out into the bright afternoon sun and took a deep breath. The air had never tasted so sweet or so terrifying. I got home to my apartment, which was now also the world headquarters of Sparrow Creative. It was a one-bedroom with a squeaky ceiling fan and a view of a brick wall. I put my box down on the kitchen counter, which was also my desk. And then the panic set in. "Oh my God," I whispered to my cat Barnaby. "What have I done?" I had no clients. I had no paycheck. I had my savings, which, after paying for the business registration and the lawyer, would last me maybe 3 months, if I only ate instant noodles. I had just walked away from a good, stable job because my boss hurt my feelings. Was Alan right? Was I just a kid? Was I inexperienced? I sat down on my floor, leaned against the cabinets, and buried my head in my knees. Barnaby came over and purred, rubbing against my arm. "It's just us, Barnes," I said. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding. A voice in my head screamed, "You've made a huge, huge mistake." The first week of being my own boss was not glamorous. I'd wake up at 7 a.m., put on work clothes, which meant switching from my sleeping sweatpants to my professional sweatpants, and sit at my kitchen counter. I made a new daily schedule, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., stare at empty inbox, 10 a.m. to 10:15, make coffee, 10:15 to 12 p.m., stare at empty inbox, but with more anxiety, 12 p.m., lunch, instant noodles, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., frantically redesign my own website for the 5th time. 4 p.m., stare out the window. 5 p.m., give Barnaby his dinner. I was too proud and frankly too scared to just call up my old clients. There are rules about that. You can't just steal them.
But they can find you. On Thursday at 2:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was an email. Not a spam email, not a bill. A real email to my new hello@sparrowcreative.com address. My heart leaped into my throat. Subject, thank God I found you. From Sarah Gable, Gable's Bakery. I opened it. Gable's Bakery was a small local bakery. They weren't a huge client, but they were my favorite. I had designed their grandma's secret now in a box packaging. The email read, Dear Grace, your auto reply at Prestige said you left. I nearly had a heart attack. They sent over the new guy, Mark, to talk about our new holiday cookie tins. Grace, it was a disaster. He kept calling me Madame. He suggested we leverage the holiday spirit by making our gingerbread men look more aggressive. I think he used the word keto-friendly, and I had to explain to him for the third time that we are an old-fashioned butter and sugar bakery. He didn't listen at all. I'm not working with him. I called the Prestige main line to complain, and I spoke to that lovely receptionist, Maria. She, reminded me that she had your new business card. You should give that woman a raise. Please tell me you are still doing design work. I've got a new line of Christmas cookies, and I'll be darned if I let that Mark person make them look aggressive. Yours in flour-dusted panic, Sarah. I read the email 3 times. I started to laugh. It was a weird, hiccuping laugh that was half joy and half relief. I grabbed my phone and called her. Gable's Bakery, this is Sarah. Sarah, it's Grace Ramirez. Grace, she screamed, and I heard a tin clatter in the background. Oh, thank heavens, you got my email. Are you saving me? Tell me you're saving me. I am, I said, now laughing for real. I started my own little agency, Sparrow Creative. Good, fantastic. I don't care what you call it. I'm in. Send me a contract. I'm your client. Now let's talk about these cookies. I'm thinking reindeer, but like sleepy reindeer, not aggressive ones. We talked for an hour. We brainstormed, we laughed. It was the best conversation I'd had in weeks. I hung up and I was shaking. I had a client. I had a real paying client. It wasn't a huge contract. It would barely cover my rent for 1 month. But it wasn't about the money. It was proof. It was proof that my work mattered. It was proof that listening to people mattered. It was proof that Alan and Mark, with all their synergy and presence, were wrong. People didn't want a heavyweight. They wanted someone who wouldn't try to make their gingerbread men aggressive. I was so energized, I stayed up all night. I sketched out the sleepy reindeer. I created a new proposal template. I sent Sarah the contract. By the time the sun came up, she had already signed it and sent back the deposit. It was the first domino, and I had a feeling it wasn't going to be the last. The deposit from Gable's Bakery hit my account, and I felt like a queen. I went out and bought the expensive instant noodles and a head of broccoli. Things were looking up. I spent the next 2 weeks working on the sleepy reindeer. I was having fun. I was creative. I was also still pretty broke. I needed more dominoes. I was updating my new and very sparse online portfolio when an incoming call from a number I didn't recognize lit up my phone. I quickly deepened my voice, trying to sound professional. Sparrow Creative, Grace speaking. Grace, it's Ben from Innovate. My heart didn't just leap, it did a full Olympic-level triple somersault. Ben, the CEO, the big fish. Ben, hi, how are you? I stammered, trying to sound cool, like I wasn't wearing sweatpants with the cat hair on them. I'm frustrated, Grace. That's how I am. I heard him sigh over the phone. We just had our big quarterly review with Prestige with your replacement, Mark. I stayed silent. Grace, it was the worst presentation I have ever sat through. He took your bite-sized campaign, the one we all loved. Yes. He tried to improve it. He said it lacked corporate impact. He renamed it, get this, the Synergy Sphere Initiative. I physically cringed. Oh no. Oh no is right, Ben said, his voice grim. He presented a new logo for it that looked like a blue bowling ball. And when I asked him what gets you home for dinner meant, he said he didn't get the food angle and thought they should focus on B2B key performance indicators. I almost threw him out of the building. I had to put my hand over my mouth from keeping from laughing. So, Ben continued, his voice grim, I told him right there. I said, Mark, this is awful. It's like you took Grace's good idea and put it through a blender full of bad suits. And he said, well, Grace was very junior. And I said, I don't care what she was. She was the one with the ideas. Where is she? And he just sputtered. So I called Prestige and they told me you were no longer with the company, which brings me to you. A glorious, wonderful silence hung in the air. Then, I said, my voice suddenly very steady, I'm so glad you called. I've actually just launched my own agency. You did? Thank God. Are you taking clients? I am. Good. We're firing Prestige. I want you. I want Sparrow Creative. I want the bite-sized campaign just the way you pitched it. Can you send me a proposal by, say, end of day? I can send it to you in an hour. We hung up and I let out a scream that probably scared my neighbors. I ran around my apartment, picked up Barnaby and spun him in a circle. We got them, Barnes! We got the big fish! I sat down and the adrenaline was so intense I could barely type. This wasn't a small bakery contract. This was Innovate. This was the account that paid half the salaries at Prestige. I pulled up the old Innovotech files from my personal backup drive. Always keep a backup. I saw the numbers. I knew exactly what Alan had been charging them. I typed up the proposal. I outlined the entire bite-sized campaign. I added a new idea I'd had for a social media tie-in. And then I got to the price. Alan had been charging them a fortune, and I knew he was under-delivering and overcharging. I typed in a number. It was less than what Alan charged, but it was still a number so big, it made my hands shake. It was more money than my dad made in a year. I took a deep breath. You're not little Grace anymore, I told myself. You're Sparrow Creative. I hit send. My phone rang literally 30 seconds later. It was Ben. Already? I said. I read fast, he said. This proposal is better than anything Alan gave me in 3 years. The social media idea is brilliant. You're hired. What about the price? I squeaked. Ben laughed. Grace, you're undercharging, but I'll sign it before you change your mind. Welcome to the team, Sparrow Creative. When I hung up, I didn't scream. I just sat there. That night, I didn't eat instant noodles. I ordered a pizza with all the toppings. The next morning, I got an email. It was from Alan. Subject, professional decency. Grace, it has come to my attention that you have been contacting our clients. I am deeply disappointed. I thought you had more professionalism than that. This is a clear violation of your non-compete agreement. I have my lawyers looking at it right now. I'd suggest you cease and desist immediately. This is not how the business world works, young lady. Alan. I stared at the email. My blood ran cold. Non-compete? He was going to sue me. I was going to lose everything before I even started. Then the anger came back, hot and clear. I reread my contract. I had a non-compete, but it said I couldn't solicit clients. I hadn't solicited anyone. Sarah found me. Ben hunted me down. I took a deep breath. I typed. Subject. Read to professional decency. Alan, thanks for your email. I'm sure you will be relieved to know I have not contacted any of your clients. They, however, have contacted me. They seem to be unhappy with the new creative direction at Prestige. My lawyer has already reviewed my contract, and I am in full compliance. It seems that professional decency also includes providing a service that clients actually want. And as you know, that's just not how the business world works for everyone. All the best. Grace Ramirez, founder, Sparrow Creative. I hit send. I was terrified, but I was also proud. A minute later, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was from Alan. He wasn't yelling. He was sputtering, just like Mark. Grace, this is Alan. We need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. Ben is a very important... Look, just call me back. You're making a big mistake, Grace. A very big... Click. I deleted the voicemail. I deleted his email. I had work to do. The next 2 months were a blur. News travels fast in a small city. The word was out. Grace was on her own. And after Interval Tech, the big fish jumped ship. Suddenly everyone was reevaluating their marketing needs. First, the city zoo called. Mark wants to put, I'm not kidding, a tiny little suit on our new baby giraffe for the ad. He said it would look professional. Please, Grace, help us. Then the local chain of car dealerships. He just keeps showing us pictures of his own car, and it's a 10-year-old sedan. We don't even sell that brand. One by one, the dominoes fell. Gable's Bakery, Innovotech, the zoo, the car dealership, the fancy downtown restaurant. They all left Prestige and came to Sparrow. My apartment was no longer a world headquarters. It was a creative war room. My kitchen counter was covered in sketches, contracts, and coffee cups. I was working 18-hour days. I was exhausted. I was terrified. And I had never been happier in my entire life. I had to hire a freelancer, a young, brilliant designer just out of college named Sam, just to keep up. I paid him well, and I listened to every one of his ideas. But the final showdown was yet to come. The biggest, most prestigious client in the entire city was the Summerfest. It was a massive, month-long festival of music, food, and art. The marketing budget was huge. It was the one account everyone wanted. Prestige had held that account for 10 years. It was Alan's crown jewel. But this year, because the festival had a new board of directors, they were opening the contract up for bids. Anyone could pitch. We should do it, Sam said, looking over his laptop at me. We were now working out of a tiny rented co-working space. Pitch for Summerfest, I said, my stomach doing a flip-flop. Sam, that's Alan's. He will die before he lets that go. So what? Let him, Sam said, grinning. Our ideas are better. We're faster. We're not Prestige. That's gotta be a good thing, right? He was right. We had 2 weeks. We worked day and night. We didn't just come up with a campaign. We came up with the movement. We designed an app. We came up with the secret password system for attendees. We had ideas for pop-up art, for local food trucks, for a campaign that wasn't just about the city, but buy the city. The day of the presentation, I was so nervous, I thought I was going to be sick. I put on my best boss outfit, a sharp blazer, dark jeans, and my favorite and only pair of nice shoes. We walked into the giant boardroom at City Hall. The committee, 10 people, sat at a long, imposing table. And at the other end of the room, looking like he just swallowed a lemon, was Alan. He was there with Mark. They were also there to pitch. Alan saw me, and his face went through a fascinating range of colors, from pale white to an interesting shade of beet red. "Grace," he said, his voice a low growl, "I'm surprised to see you here. I thought you were busy with your little projects." "Hi, Alan," I said, my voice bright and steady. "Hi, Mark. We're here to pitch, just like you." "They let anyone in these days," Alan muttered to Mark. "They do," said the head of the committee, a sharp woman named Director Evans. "We're excited to see some new blood. Alan, your team is up first. You have 30 minutes. I sat down with Sam and we watched. Alan's presentation was exactly what you'd expect. It was slick, it was expensive, it was boring. He and Mark talked about leveraging assets and maximizing footprint. They showed a sample poster. It was a picture of a saxophone from a stock photo. It had the same font Alan had been using since 2005. It was, in a word, inexperienced. It was the work of someone who hadn't had a new idea in a decade. After 30 minutes, Director Evans said, "Thank you, Alan. Any questions from the board?" Silence. "Great," she said. "Okay, Sparrow Creative, you're up." I stood up. My knees were shaking. I walked to the front of the room and plugged in my laptop. "Good morning," I said, and I smiled. A real smile. "We're Sparrow Creative. I'm Grace. This is Sam. And we know you're tired of seeing pictures of saxophones." A few people on the committee chuckled. Alan's face got darker. "The Summerfest isn't an asset to be leveraged," I said, clicking to my first slide. It was a bright, beautiful collage of real photos of people from last year's fest. It's a feeling. It's the moment you taste the first mini donut of the summer. It's the sound of a band you've never heard of, who just became your new favorite. It's about connection. For the next 25 minutes, Sam and I didn't present. We shared. We showed them our app. We told them our secret password idea. We showed them a campaign that was bright and messy and human. When we finished, the room was quiet. "So," Director Evans said, leaning forward, "what you're saying is you want to get rid of the saxophone." "We want to get rid of all the saxophones, unless a real person is playing one, in which case we want to put them on our app." Director Evans smiled. And then Alan did the stupidest thing he could have possibly done. He stood up. Director Evans, I must object." "Object?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. This is a joke. This child," he said, pointing at me. "She has no idea what she's doing. She worked for me. I taught her everything she knows." The room was deathly quiet. I looked at Alan. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't angry. I just felt sad for him. I turned to Director Evans. "Alan is right about one thing," I said, my voice calm. "I did work for him, and he taught me a very, very important lesson." "And what was that?" she asked. "He taught me what happens when you stop listening." He taught me that presence doesn't mean anything if you don't have ideas. And he taught me that being inexperienced isn't a weakness. It's a superpower. It means you're not stuck. It means you're still curious. It means you're still willing to try. I looked back at Alan. His mouth was open. "Thank you for the lesson, Alan," I said. Director Evans looked at me. Then she looked at Alan. Then she looked at the board. "Thank you both for your time," she said, her face unreadable. "We'll be in touch." The walk back to the co-working space was silent. "So, we're dead, right?" Sam finally said as we stepped into the elevator. "I have no idea. I think I might have just ended my entire career. Or his. Or both." That was awesome," Sam said, breaking into a grin. "He taught me what happens when you stop listening. I think I'm going to get that tattooed." I laughed, the tension finally breaking. We spent the next 48 hours in a state of pure anxiety. Every time my phone rang, I jumped. I replayed the meeting over and over in my head. I shouldn't have said that about the saxophone. It was too aggressive. "It was perfect," Sam insisted. On Wednesday, at 5:59 p.m., my phone rang. The caller ID said, City Hall. I looked at Sam. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely hit the answer button. "This is Grace Ramirez." "Grace, this is Director Evans. I'll be quick. The board loved you." My knees buckled. I sat down hard in my wheelie chair. "Loved?" The vote was unanimous. "We're getting rid of the saxophones. The Summerfest contract is yours. Congratulations, Miss Ramirez. You're about to be very, very busy." I was crying. I was ugly crying, with silent, happy tears rolling down my face. "Thank you," I managed to choke out. "Thank you so much. Sparrow Creative, we won't let you down." "I know you won't. And one more thing. That lesson your old boss taught you about listening, that's what sealed the deal. We figured anyone who learned that lesson the hard way will never forget it. Send me your contract." I hung up. Sam was staring at me, his eyes wide. "We got it," I whispered. He didn't say anything. He just ran across the room and gave me a high five so hard it stung. We didn't just have a small celebration. We went out. We took the whole co-working space, all 8 of us, out for drinks and appetizers. I put it all on the new Sparrow Creative business card. The next morning, I woke up with a headache, a huge smile, and an email. It was from the Global Foods Corporation, the last major client at Prestige, the one that was bigger than Innovatech. Subject: Congratulations! Dear Miss Ramirez, we saw the news this morning. The Summerfest. What a coup! We are not surprised. We have been trying to get Alan and Mark to return our calls for 3 weeks. Our contract with Prestige is up for renewal, and frankly, their lack of attention has been alarming. We were wondering if Sparrow Creative has any room on its client list for a global food conglomerate. Let's have lunch, my treat. I stared at the email. This was it. This was the last one, the final domino. If Global Foods left, Prestige Marketing would be nothing, just an empty office with dark wood walls. I took a deep breath. I thought about Alan. I thought about his presence. I thought about him calling me a child. And then I typed my reply. I'd be delighted. How's mean? It's been 3 years since I started Sparrow Creative in my kitchen. I'm writing this from my new office. It's not a co-working space, and it's not my apartment. It's a bright, airy loft downtown with huge windows and a brick wall that's covered in whiteboards. We have 10 employees now, including Sam, who is now my creative director. We have a no saxophone role. It's written on the wall. Gable's Bakery is still my client. Sarah's Sleepy Reindeer tins were a massive hit, and she's now in 3 different grocery chains. Innovatech's Bite Size campaign won a national award. Ben keeps trying to hire me to come work for him, but I tell him I'm not for sale. The Summerfest was the biggest it's ever been. Oh, and Prestige Marketing? They closed their doors about 6 months after I won the Summerfest contract. Alan, well, I heard he's consulting now. Mark, I think, is selling insurance. Last week, I was walking to get coffee. I passed by the old Prestige building. The dark, tinted glass doors were chained. There was a dusty for lease sign in the window. I stopped for a moment. I thought I'd feel something. Joy? Vengeance? But I didn't. I just felt quiet. Alan was right about one thing all those years ago. I was inexperienced. I was inexperienced in being bullied. I was inexperienced in being told no. I was inexperienced in knowing my own worth. I'm not anymore. I took a sip of my coffee, smiled, and kept walking. I had a meeting to get to. My team had a brilliant new idea, and I couldn't wait to hear it. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share it with friends. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Bye!